Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation, and first of all, congratulations for this very important signature. I have to admit it's very emotional for me to be here today because I think it's sort of 4 years since I last entered this hemicycle, and actually I guess that was my seat. But it's definitely the first time I'm speaking from this podium. And it's also the very first time I speak on the occasion of the opening of an academic year of another institution that is not the College of Europe. So I'm doubly humbled and honored for this wonderful opportunity. And let me tell you also something that probably I've never seen the MA cycle so full, which is wonderful. You will forgive me if I step back in my previous shoes for a moment, and I'm sure that my colleagues, my former colleagues, President Roberta Metsola would be so happy and pleased to see you sitting in the House of the European Democracy, and it's really amazing, an amazing experience to see you all here. And I would like to congratulate the rectors for having this, the rector of the VUB and the other rectors gathered here this afternoon, for having had this wonderful idea of having this event in the hemicycle. And also congratulate them on managing to get the hemicycle, because I think it's one of the most difficult negotiations you can go through. For me, it is really also a little bit of an emotional moment, because even if the College of Europe is not part of Utopia, I have been connected with this initiative as a rector of the College of Europe from the inception phase, not really the very, very beginning, but almost. And that is thanks to a wonderful woman that I would like to honor today, the late Rector Caroline Powells, that involved me in this with a lot of enthusiasm, as she always was, extremely enthusiastic about every project that she was involved in. And I would like also to use this opportunity for paying my own personal tribute to her memory, because she has been always great support. So I know that the VUB is known to be a rather unconventional academic institution, and this is why I have decided to go the unconventional way. This is my keynote speech. But this is not only because actually I prefer to speak my mind without prejudging what I will be saying, but also because speaking as last of this ceremony, I wanted to hear, I wanted to listen to the other speeches and to listen to the ideas that were presented here, and I was very impressed. And so you will hear from me actually a little bit the continuation, I think somehow, hopefully, the logical continuation of the speech that the rector gave on the new Renaissance and the role of Utopia in this. And I would take as a starting point the fact that I fully share everything that he has mentioned, and this makes my life much easier, Mr. Rector. Thank you for that. I would have two questions. I think the title of this event, of this opening, puts us in front of two questions. And I think they are very important intellectual questions, also political questions, that is very healthy to ask ourselves, I believe, not only in the academic community, but also broadly in the institutional environment and in society. The first one is if Europe is a utopia. And the second one is if the European Union needs a new renaissance. As you see, Mr. Rector, I try to narrow it down to the institutional level so that we don't overlap in the reflection, because I fully share your thoughts. To the first question, my answer is definitely not. The European Union, the process of the European integration has started as a utopian one, clearly so. But has proven to be, over decades and today, I think as strongly as ever, as an utopia that has turned into reality, and probably one of the strongest ones. The College of Europe, the academic institution I have the honor to lead now since 2020, is, I believe, the strongest demonstration in the academic field of this utopia turning reality. The College of Europe in Bruges started in 1949, before the European institutions even started their process. From a group of visionary men, very few women at the time, we're a large majority today, that were aiming at bringing together students from countries across Europe that were basically fighting each other only a couple of years before, and making them live together, not only study together, but live together. And the small group of visionaries that wanted to build the European institutions, to build the European integration. So much that in the statute of the College of Europe, we have a clear mission, and that is not an academic mission. It's somehow an institutional mission. The mission of the College of Europe still today is to contribute to the European integration. And this is why I feel so connected with this Alliance of European Universities, because this is exactly in small what we are doing every day in the College of Europe, to bring the communities, to connect the learning communities, as it was mentioned, on a daily basis, to make Europe live in an academic environment. But it started like this. It started as a utopia of having Europeans, rather than fighting each other, rather than fight interests, steal and coal, and then cooperating. And sharing interest was somehow the basis for stopping killing each other. Because if you share an economic interest, you have a strong incentive to avoid destructing your own interest, attacking the other's interest. So that was a very realistic, a very pragmatic, very pragmatic, not very idealistic, but very pragmatic approach of a visionary group that started in those years. And then it turned into reality, turned into institutional construction. Some might even say, even complex constructions from an institutional point of view. I don't believe so. I think complexity is good because it reflects the complexity of life, of societies, of diversity. And then the European Union integration process has faced a challenge, has faced a moment of crisis. I'll share with you a personal anecdote. In 2014, I was the foreign minister of Italy. And when the idea of having me as a high representative and vice president of the European Union, many around me in Italy were telling me, why should you do that? Are you sure? I mean, you are the foreign minister of a G7 country. Why should you get an impossible job where you have to mediate among 28 at the time? Complex, complicated, Commission, Council, Parliament. Why? I mean, the national way is much easier, right? Is labeled. I didn't listen. I listened, but then I decided otherwise. I never regret it, and I actually can tell you that were the most amazing 5 years of my life, professionally and from a personal point of view, obviously before becoming director of the College of Europe, which is the most amazing experience. But there was at the time, 2014, it was less than 10 years ago, there was at the time a need to explain, to make the case on why the European Union was relevant, why it counted. And it was not evident. It was not evident. Today, I think that we have gone through several crises, and all the crises we can imagine. The Eurozone crisis, the financial crisis, the so-called refugee crisis that I always say is a crisis for the refugees, much more for them for Europe. Brexit, the war in Ukraine, starting in 2014 and then continuing. Changes across the Atlantic that were not always making things easy on the transatlantic bond, and many other challenges, terrorist attacks on European soil, many different challenges, climate change. But here today, I think, not only in Belgium, but everywhere in Europe and beyond, I don't think we have to make the case anymore for why the European Union is relevant. I think this is quite evident. I think this is quite well understood, that we need that level of power, that level of engagement, that level of action to face and to have some chances of dealing with the challenges, because none of these crises we have gone through in the last 10 years can possibly be tackled at national level, not to mention below. None of them. And one of my favorite quotes is the one that goes that actually we do not have big and small member states, we only have member states that have not yet realized that they are small in the world of today. I think that in these last years, in these last 10 years, we got to understand, even to feel sometimes on our own skin, why we need the European Union. Then we still have a lot of debates, and here I come on the Renaissance, on how we use this level of governance, how the policies translate, what is the content of our being European Union. But the fact that we need to be together as a union, I don't think is in question anymore. And probably one turning point to that was indeed 2016. June 2016, the Brexit referendum, that you might remember, even the youngest ones in the room might remember 2016. In that summer, almost all commentators, academics, journalists, politicians in the institutions, many, not so much in the European Commission we were holding, but many, if not all, were thinking that this would have been the beginning of the end of the European Union, the beginning of the disgregation of our community. Many were thinking the UK is just the first one to leave, and then once they leave, others will follow. And look at us now. Not only today, the 10 includes, congratulations, a university in the UK, but today, no member state of the remaining 27 is seriously planning to leave the Union. I hope I'm not mistaken. Many criticize the European Union, and this is perfectly fine. This is the essence of democracy. You can be against the policies of the Union currently taken, but no one is currently actively planning to leave. Why? First of all, the deterrence effect, I believe. We've seen how messy it was for the United Kingdom. If it was messy for them, imagine for us, better not to go there, I think. But I think there is another element to that. I think that we have gone through crises in these last 10 years that have shown us that without the being together in the Union, we wouldn't have literally sometimes survived. Think of the COVID crisis. Think of the financial crisis even before that. Think of the war in Ukraine. And imagine these scenarios without the European Union existing. COVID would have killed many, many more people than it has. And I speak as an Italian here, saying that it killed here, saying that without the European Union, we wouldn't have had protocols, vaccines, research. And the Commission has extended its competencies, rightly so. We've managed to be creative, to break taboos. I still say we, because I think that the European institutions still belong to all citizens. The European Union has managed to react courageously with three elements that normally are not recognized as the main features of the European Union. United, fast, and impactful. Without the European Union, during the COVID years, many of our citizens, many more of our citizens would be would have been killed. And we wouldn't have managed, probably, to recuperate, to restart our economic and social activities as we have. Still difficult, but we have an instrument that is impressive today. Breaking, by the way, a taboo. Just a few months before, just a few weeks before the decision on Next Generation EU, nobody would have ever told you that it would have been possible for the European Union to borrow money on the markets using the budget as a guarantee, and it happened. So that was also another taboo. Act creatively and go beyond the self-imposed borders sometimes. But also take the war in Ukraine, the Russian aggression against Ukraine, the invasion. What would have happened without the European Union in place in February 2022? My guess is that probably the NATO countries would have been still secured, but wouldn't have we started to maybe split and be, somehow exposed to the Russian favorite exercise, which they learned probably from my ancestors, the Romans, divide et impera, trying to start and pick divisions and create alternative alliances. The previous European wars, the previous wars, were all seeing Europe divided. Without the European Union, we might face today a similar situation, especially if you think of the interests, economic and energy interests that we had at the time of the invasion. So the European Union has protected us, has guaranteed our daily lives as they are, our health, our safety, our economic prosperity, our rights, in a way that was maybe unforeseeable before, has been tested, and the test has given us a good result. The European Union is capable of acting united, fast, and in an impactful manner when it's needed. And this is, for me, a reason for pride, but also a little bit of worry, because the European Union is great, has proven to be great. It was not a given. It was not a given. Has proven in confronting challenges and responding to acute threats, I would say to existential threats, like COVID, like the war in Ukraine. But in times of calm that we've not experienced in the last 10 years, but hopefully they will come at one moment, are we equally able to sustain this trend? Are we equally able to act as a superpower for ourselves, which doesn't mean for ourselves against the others, for ourselves a cooperative power, also in the world, in times where our existential values or our existential interests or our lives are not challenged, are not threatened? Are we able to sustain this trend over time? Or do we constantly need crises and challenges and threats to show unity and strength? This is why I believe we need a new renaissance, on which, at the beginning, I was a bit perplexed, because a renaissance, especially for an Italian, implies that the time that comes before is the Middle Age. And we're not living the Middle Ages of the European Union. We are living good times. So much that, yes, we're 27 today, but we have many others that want to join. And who knows, maybe the 28 one day would want to join back. But now I'm free to say these things. It's beautiful. But I think that we do need a new renaissance, exactly because we have proven to be strong and united and impactful in times of existential threats. But we cannot live in a permanent crisis mode. We need to be able to live this strength as the normal, not as the extraordinary, and to recognize the power of Europe beyond the crisis, the existential threats that we need to face. We need to get to the point, and I hope that this is going to be the result of the new Renaissance, to get to the point where we recognize the value of being a European Union, not because it's saving us from death, but because it's good to have. Good to have, that we recognize this good. We don't need a war, we don't need a pandemic to recognize that it's good to be together. And this is, I think, the next step that we need as a new Renaissance. How we consolidate this strength. I guess that each of us in this room might have his or her own answer to this. How do we do this? How do we enter this Renaissance, this European Renaissance, this sort of jump in this transitional time to make the good the norm, to make the recognition of the good of the European Union the norm? My answer, my personal answer that I have seen, comforted a lot, hearing carefully at the State of the Union speech of President von der Leyen in the same hemicycle in Strasbourg a few weeks ago, is the combination of reforming the Union internally and completing the unification of our continent. This is, for me, the combination of factors that will constitute, eventually, the European Renaissance we need. The deep reform inside to get ready to be not only 27, but 30 plus member states, and to enlarge our union. Not to union, I don't like the word, to complete our union. And this means preparing for the future Europe. This means preparing for the next steps of the European Union integration. I think as centers of knowledge, research, network, as academic institutions, we have, I think, a responsibility, a big responsibility. That is not only to do what Utopia is doing today, connecting an alliance, creating networks that go beyond the already extremely successful Erasmus program, of which I am a proud alumna. Not only connecting our academic institutions, we need also to, inside each of our academic institutions, prepare the generations that will manage to lead this new renaissance for the Union. That is the challenge. Are we equipped with human capital that is ready for that challenge? Because if you think of transforming and transforming the Union and completing the unification of our continent, you need to reform, basically review, reform, call it how you want, basically all different elements of how the European institutions work today, from the budget to the foreign policy, or the institutional dynamics, or agricultural policy, cohesion policy, you name it. You take basically the entire DGs of the Commission and you just go through each of the policies and look into that. Are we equipped? Are our new generations equipped to have this critical approach without transforming the critical approach into a disruptive approach? Are we able to marry, to connect the recognition of the good of being in a union together with the critical approach to every single policy we have in place, without losing the awareness that it's good to be together? This is, I think, the challenge we're called to face. And I think that the universities of Europe, the academic institutions of our continent are ready to take this responsibility and to form generations of leaders that will lead us through a new renaissance of our continent. And not only working on creating a learning community, not only transferring knowledge or research, but mainly, and also, not mainly, also, working on the empowerment of a generation, working on the self-confidence, working on the inclusivity, working on the diversity of the pipeline that leads to the institutions, which is something on which we have to have a little bit of self-criticism. The institutions are very white, a little bit too white, and universities too. This is one of the challenges we will need to face. How do we transform through the academic work, through the academic societies? How do we transform the pipeline that feeds the institutions so that they can lead the transformation of a renaissance? Empowering a generation that doesn't just study, in our case, in the college, European studies, but also lives Europe, lives the international multicultural dynamics of being together, and by that manages to build an inclusive community, a knowledge community to shape the future of the European Union. This is why I feel very much empathy and synergy with the idea of working on a European Renaissance, so much that actually a couple of years ago, when we were redefining the brand somehow of the college, that never changes, but the motto of the College of Europe, I decided to highlight this element. And now the College of Europe is, or at least likes to be recognized as the laboratory of the European Renaissance. So we had the same idea together. And I think that this is not by coincidence, because indeed, I think that this is what we're doing. In Utopia, in the college, in many other universities around Europe, with the support of the European institutions, to create an empowered new generation that is able to shape the renaissance of our continent. Thank you very much.